Internet friends. What happens when your front porch gets crowded with 20,000 new neighbors who you have very little in common with? That scenario is knocking at the door of Springfield, Ohio, where up until recently, life was rolling by like a slow Sunday afternoon. But this week, Springfield is at the center of something much bigger. Something its citizens didn't ask for, nor were they prepared for, but thanks to the federal government, Springfield locals now feel like total strangers in their hometowns.
I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me, I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move. He said, we can't do this anymore. He said, it's killing both of us mentally. I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens. I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status, and you're protecting them, and I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed, but who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me? I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
According to recent reports, an estimated 20,000 Haitians have been imported to Springfield in the last several years, a town with around 60,000 citizens before the influx of foreigners. How can the federal government move this many people into your town and it's not generally regarded as an act of war? I mean, technically, they're not all considered refugees either, because under the Refugee Act, the government doesn't require Haitians to have refugee status to receive benefits. Benefits which, according to former Ohio State Representative Kyle Kohler, in a recent speech, include but are not limited to receiving between $600 and $1,600 per month on debit cards through the Refugee Cash Assistance Program. And y'all always love it when we do live math on here. So if we break that down and say the average Haitian gets, $1,000 of assistance per month, that's $20 million per month in taxpayer funding, or $240 million a year in taxpayer funding. But let's just call it $250 million on the conservative side before food stamps and all that. Also, Haitians are being placed in the local Springfield school systems, of course, which are now dealing with over 1,600 non-English speaking students having enrolled in the last several years. And just to add context here, many Haitians are eligible for Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, allowing them legal residence and work rights in the U.S., meaning they can't be sent home, deported, removed.
Rob Rue is the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, and Brian Heck is the city manager, and they both join me now. Good morning to you both. Mayor Rue, tell us what's going on in Springfield.
Well, what we've seen is just such a quick increase of our population over the last 5 years. This has overwhelmed our safety services and caused great concern for our community.
We had a housing shortage well before this immigration crisis that's impacted our community, and this has just made it 100 times worse. And so it's setting communities like Springfield up to fail.
New Haiti, Springfield, is experiencing a significant housing crisis, largely due to the influx of Haitian migrants. This rapid growth has strained housing, healthcare, and education. Springfield is now stretched thinner than, to paraphrase Tolkien, like butter scraped over too much bread. Needless to say, tensions between Haitians and Springfield residents are heightened. There are all these reports of Springfield residents missing pets, like household pets, and that Haitians have been caught eating these pets, cats, and ducks from the park. Again, those are reports, and MSM is saying that's all fake and racist and politically motivated.
These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, y'all can be comfortable with this. I don't know, who's getting paid from it. I feel like I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like,
that is why also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
But of course, there was one boy who was actually killed by a Haitian in Springfield in August of 2023. His name was Aiden Clark, an 11-year-old riding the bus on his first day of school when Herman Joseph, a Haitian migrant without a driver's license, drove a minivan into oncoming traffic and hit Aiden and his classmates' school bus. The bus was overturned, ejecting Aiden, who died on site. More than 20 other students were hurt. Did the MSM seek justice for Aiden in his senseless death on the first day of school? Of course they didn't. The story vanished. Poof. While this story might seem like it's about Haitians, it's actually not. Not to me anyway. Not this Haitian story, not the Venezuelan gang story. It's not about a foreign people breaking down a town, but rather a plan, a long time in the making, coming together. I've been reporting on this channel for, 8 years? And from where I'm sitting, the United States is actually falling apart and being split up into these strongholds, these warlord strongholds, essentially. Springfield is just the one you know about, but tomorrow it's your town. And this isn't me vying for a political candidate to fix it all. I'm just telling you the reality of what we've allowed to happen. And the biggest and most violent group wins, while we're told we're racist and bigoted for not liking it. In fact, the, quote, globalist cabal is helping make it happen. They told you it was going down in their predictions for 2030. The annihilation of American sovereignty. Nations without borders. The U.S. wouldn't be a superpower anymore. And bad foreign actors and MSM grifters are coming out of the woodwork to tell you it's not happening. That these stories are politically motivated. But it's you, your family, and your children who are left to deal with the reality of our situation. The destruction of America. Why are foreigners' human rights the problem and responsibility of the American taxpayer when the average house costs $416,000? Hardworking people who spent their lives serving the U.S. can't even get basic health care benefits. And we're giving these people debit cards and free health care? Free for them, but not for the taxpayer. If illegal immigrants are so great, according to progressive talking points, then they should be sent back to their country so they can benefit their homeland. U.S. inflation is out of control. The nation is, 40 trillion something in debt? And while we're all paying into Social Security, we're never going to see a dime of it. It's running dry. But somehow we're talking about mortgage access for illegal immigrants in California when you and your wife saved up 10 years just to afford a down payment on a house. And now must compete with BlackRock in a bidding war buying up the whole neighborhood in cash. I believe they want to destroy every small town in America so people are forced to live in larger cities where they can be easily monitored and controlled. I believe they will never stop unless forced to. So many nations have been fractured by people who benefited from the destruction. And the remnants of those nations will be imported to every small town across America, unable to assimilate. Small towns will never be the same if this continues. Your children will never be safe, and your family will never achieve even a fraction of this mythical and elusive American dream. That's not fear-mongering. That's just cold, hard reality from someone who has been predicting and reporting on this for years. I would encourage you to start on a local level and find out which refugee resettlement organizations are actively operating in your jurisdiction. And listen, these organizations can't even handle the tiniest bit of press without calling whoever is challenging them a white supremacist or an alt-right character or a bigot. But after acting like a victim and all the name-calling, what do they have left? Find out the NGOs funding them. It varies from state to state. That's all you really need to know to get the general sense of what's going on right now for this particular issue. If you want more details, stick around for the second part. As always, internet friends, I want to know your thoughts. I always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for subscribing, supporting me on Patreon, and buying my new book, The Deep State Encyclopedia. Bye! This is kind of an after-hours video if I sound a little quiet because everyone's asleep right now and I'm recording this in my basement, but the second part of this will go into some of the behind-the-scenes funding and context behind Haitian history, particularly dealing with the Clinton Foundation.